in Galway, I remember one particular case that Galway is said to have spiked, kind of big thing. We know what a spike looked like. 16 cases that week. 16 cases was turned into a spike. People don't analyze the words they hear on RTE. They just hear them and think when they say spike, they mean spike, that there has been a dramatic increase in disease and in mortality. Neither was the case. Now, we know about North Dakota and South Dakota. They're culturally, religiously, racially indivisible. They're almost identical. One closed down completely during the pandemic. The other didn't. It was a woman governor in, I can't remember, North or South Dakota, who said the schools are going to stay open, the universities are going to stay open, the shops are going to stay open, the cinemas are going to stay open. We're going to live life as normal, just as Sweden did. The outcome of that was the two states had identical levels of infection, but the state that didn't have the lockdown was economically and culturally, and most importantly of all, psychologically intact. All the damage that was done to young people, and this is the most inexcusable dimension of the lockdown, the damage, the psychological, material, and scholastic, and other aspect, educational damage that was done to young people during the closure was not done in the state that had no lockdown. Now, this should be a subject of international debate around the world. Why did one state that is identical to another behave differently and was the beneficiary of not shutting down? Now, there has been no discussion about the two Dakotas, no discussion in Ireland about what happened here. And I don't know an awful lot about what happened here, but I do know that there hasn't been a debate. And this is mad. This is exactly what the media exists for, to have this discussion, right or wrong, on the issues involved. And one of the most important things about my case is that I reserve the right to be wrong. Being wrong is one of the most important virtues and the most important freedoms in any vibrant democracy. And that right to be wrong, or even the risk of being wrong, if you confiscate that from society, that society is no longer free. And for the first time in recorded history that I know of, people have volitionally surrendered their freedom in order to achieve uniformity of belief in the way that would any pope of the 18th century would have revered, and any mullah in the 21st century would envy.
But if you take that then, right, and you just look forward in time to the next major global event, whether it's kind of a manufactured event or a real event, just say there's one there. I mean, we have, and if the media is so supine, how are the Irish people supposed to come to some kind of collective wisdom around whatever an event is when they're not being engaged in sort of meaningful debate?
You're wrong. They're not supposed to have these liberties. When you use that term "supposed," you spoke like an old-fashioned libertarian liberal. Your days are over. What we have now is consensual despotism, and there is no dispute about that. And the mouthpieces of this consensual despotism are within the conjoined media of RTE and the Irish Times. And the independent newspapers still are slightly independent. I mean, they are independent, more independent than the Irish Times and RTE, but they speak as one voice. It's not coincidental that neither organization gave any time to Kevin Myers' memoir, which touches upon both organizations. Now, why would they both boycott me? Because they think the same way. I use me as an example. We know the same thing happened in COVID. We know the same thing happens in their coverage of the Middle East, the great catastrophe of the Middle East, which is far worse than anything I feared. But it's now happened. And how are they dealing with that? They who said that the Israelis were the oppressors and the Palestinians, the Gazans are not Palestinians, by the way. That's a technical, nomenclatural error. But who says that now? Obviously, there's going to be more victims, but the war has begun. This is a war that has been encouraged passively by the attitude of elements in Western Europe that said Israel was an apartheid state. It is nothing of the kind. It is the most democratically accountable, most democratically tolerant society in all of the Middle East. Yet the left liberal media of Western Europe and North America targeted the most free society in the entire Middle East as the most oppressive.